I made a mistake. A couple of weeks ago, I released a video about the Surwish CrossMix card for the TrimUI Smart Pro S, and I was really impressed with it. The card offered a proper pick-up-and-play experience. It came with a beautifully curated game collection, and it ran on a reliable SanDisk card that wouldn't develop amnesia halfway through saving your progress. But here's the thing about reviews. You can't test every single game on every single system unless you've got the kind of free time that suggests that you're either independently wealthy or you're spending time at His Majesty's pleasure. So I focused my testing on the systems that had struggled the most when I was testing the original Smart Pro S out. PSP, N64, Saturn, the usual suspects. Dreamcast, however, worked absolutely flawlessly on the stock operating system, running so smoothly that it practically hummed a little tune whilst it was doing it. And so naturally, I assumed that it would be fine on CrossMix as well. Well, I messed up. And it turns out Dreamcast games on the Surwish CrossMix card were running at 30 frames a second with audio that had been slowed down enough to make it sound like you were hearing everything through a thick layer of treacle. Now, I could have just quietly acknowledged this in a pinned comment and hoped that everybody would move on with their lives, but that's not how I do things on this channel, because mistakes deserve solutions and proper attention rather than being swept under the digital carpet. So here's what we're going to do today. I am going to show you exactly what the problem was, why it happened, and most importantly, how to fix it in about 5 minutes. It's a very quick fix. This is your step-by-step guide to getting Dreamcast running at a frame rate that it deserves, even if you've never touched a configuration file in your life and you consider unzipping a folder to be a technical achievement worth celebrating. But first, a word from our intro. Right, let's talk about what's actually going wrong. When you load up a Dreamcast game on the Surwish CrossMix card, you get 30 frames a second instead of the 60 that you would likely see on the stock operating system. Now look, I say 60 frames a second, but it's much like interest. Frame rates can go up and down. But the practical upshot here is that you want a system that gives you a great experience when playing a game, and that means aiming for around 60 frames a second. But it wasn't just the frame rate that was the problem. The audio would slow down as well, making the guy from Crazy Taxi sound like he was reading his lines after a particularly heavy 12-hour pub crawl. And what's more, if you disabled the sound driver entirely and ran a game, the frame rates instantly jumped to that 60 frames a second. So I knew where to start looking. Now, the interesting thing is that CrossMix isn't using a broken emulator at all. It was using Flycast 2.4 SA, which is perfectly capable of running Dreamcast games beautifully. And this meant that the problem had to be lurking somewhere in the configuration files like an unwelcome house guest. The answer turned out to be a single line of code in the emulator's launch script. And because of where it was, there was nothing you could do to change it using the emulator settings in-game to make things any better. There's something called a library path, which tells the emulator where to find bits of code, the ones that it needs to run properly, and the CrossMix configuration was pointing Flycast 2.4 at the old library files from Flycast 1.0. It's rather like asking a fighter jet to run on unleaded petrol. So the fix, as it turns out, is remarkably simple. We just need to remove that one problematic line from the configuration file. There's no complicated installations, no massive emulator binaries to download that occupy more space than your entire childhood photo collection. It's just one small edit to tell Flycast 2.4 to use its own proper libraries instead of the old ones. But even that seemed like too much for me. That's not what I wanted to give you. I wanted to make this as painless as possible. So I've put together a Hotfix package that does exactly this, and I'm going to walk you through installing it step by step. Don't worry if GitHub sounds intimidating, because it's really just a website where people share files and occasionally have these really extremely polite arguments about code formatting. First, you need to get to the GitHub page where I've uploaded the fix. The link is in the description below. Once you're on that page, look near the top right-hand side for a green button that says Code. Click on that button and a little menu will drop down, and at the bottom of that menu you'll see an option that says Download Zip. Click that and your browser will start downloading a file. The file will be called something like tsps crossmix hotfix-main.zip, and it'll probably end up in your downloads folder if you've not specified somewhere else, which tends to be where files go to live alongside those 17 different versions of the same PDF that you've downloaded by mistake. Once the download is finished, you need to extract the zip file. On Windows, that just means to right-click on it and choose the option that says either Extract All or Extract Here. Click on that and Windows will unpack the files, either where they are or into a new folder. And if you open that new folder, you'll see that there's two things inside. There's a README file with all of the technical details if you're interested, although you don't need to touch that at all. The important thing here is the folder that it extracts, called emus. That's the folder that we're going to copy onto your SD card. Now, take out your Surwish CrossMix SD card from the TrimUI Smart Pro S and put it into your computer. It should appear as a new drive, and here is where the magic happens. And by magic, I mean the part that's almost disappointingly simple. You take that emus folder from the extracted files, and you just drag it into the root of your SD card. Straight into the root so that it's sitting right there alongside whatever other folders are already on your card. Windows is going to immediately pop up a message asking if you want to replace the files that are already there. And yes, you do want to do that, because that's literally the entire point of this operation. Click Yes or Replace, or whatever button your version of Windows is using to confirm that you definitely do want to do this thing that you just deliberately did. And then that's it. That's the entire installation process, which took longer to explain than it does to actually perform. The hotfix automatically adds backup copies of your original files, saving them with a .old extension, so if anything goes wrong, you can roll everything back. But nothing will go wrong, because all we've done is fix a single configuration file that was pointing at the wrong libraries. So now you can take out your SD card from your computer, put it back into the TrimUI Smart Pro S, turn it on, navigate to your Dreamcast games, and launch something. Anything. You know, my favourite game to test things with is always Crazy Taxi, because I quite like driving games. But you should immediately notice the difference. You should have smooth audio, there shouldn't be any more slowdown, the emulator should be running at 60 frames a second, it's finally allowed to use the libraries that it was meant to be using all along, and it's responding with all of the enthusiasm of a dog finally let off its lead. Now, I should mention that this hotfix actually does a few things behind the scenes, in case you're the sort of person who likes to understand what's happening rather than just accepting that computers work through some sort of digital sorcery. So what we're doing here is we're modifying two files. The first is flycast _standalone v2.4.sh, which is the launch script for the emulator. We've removed one line here. In fact, I've just commented it out, so it's not even removed properly. But we've removed that problematic library path that was forcing it to use the old version 1 libraries. That one line alone has been causing more problems than a toddler with a permanent marker. The second file is config.json, which we've updated to make sure that the fixed version of the emulator is the default emulator for all Dreamcast games. Your original files are automatically, well, they're not renamed, but I've added copies of them into the repository with a .old extension, so they're sitting there safe and sound if you ever need them again, like a spare tire in the boot that you hope to never actually use. And if for some bizarre reason you want to undo this fix and go back to 30 frames a second, there's a rollback procedure in the README file that explains exactly how to do that. I can't imagine why you would, but the option exists for those of you who are living at half speed. I'm genuinely sorry for missing this in my original review. Dreamcast is just not one of those consoles that I like very much. It's not one of my favourite systems, and certainly not one that I was excited to play on this particular device. But the fact that it wasn't running properly on CrossMix should have been something that I caught before publishing a video recommending the card to several thousand people. But I'm glad I've been able to find a fix, and I'm glad that I can provide this solution to everybody who has been affected by this issue. And if this hotfix has helped you out in any way, please do give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'll keep the GitHub page updated if I find any improvements or any other fixes that come along in the meantime. And if you've got any questions, or if you run into any problems as you're going along, then leave them in the comments below and I will do my best to help. Until next time, thank you ever so much for watching, and that leaves me with just one thing to say. Happy gaming.